Hey, Charles, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Dan. I'm okay. How are you?
I'm well. I'm good.
What's new?
So I've been focusing on me the last week. I've been doing some life planning.
Yeah? What's that look like?
Yeah. So I have a really bad habit of consuming some information, getting into it, just scratching the surface, and then not really following up with it, not keeping it in my routine, not always executing on it.
Same.
Kind of a lot of mental masturbation,
Yeah,
where
I
it's just
do the same thing.
Ideas. These are,
yeah.
And one of the things that I had done back in 2016 was this book called Living Forward by Michael Hyatt. And it's basically lays out a service that actually his company provides, but this is the book on how to do it. And it's basically life planning and walks you through the things that using tools and questions to get you to figure out what you want to do with your life and basically how you want to be remembered. Why are we here? What are we doing here? And what we want to do for our lives, and a lot of really good prompts. So really they kind of start with the end in mind, asking you, what would you want people to say about you when you're gone? They want you to write your eulogy in present tense and use that to basically then move backwards and look at the different accounts, which, as if you would say your life accounts, right? So your friendships, your family, your job, your hobbies, your faith, things like that. And how are you working and living in those different accounts? And it just kind of gets you to think. So part of this process really is also setting aside time to think. And that's the biggest thing that I let go because I didn't keep up with it. I wrote out this life plan 2016, and it's like 10 pages long from answering all these questions. And you go through and say, hey, I would like to do these things. This is the kind of relationship I want to have with my spouse. This is the kind of relationship I want to have with my mother, my father, whatever that might be. And then what kinds of things, boots to the ground, what kinds of things are you doing on a yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, basis to support that type of life that you're trying to build. And it's a great focal point. So I scheduled time to, my week to go through that book again, go through my life plan again, make some changes and updates. And, so I'm excited about that. A lot of it is really getting comfortable with blocking off the times of your yearly calendar to do this work. And I know that when I meditate, I make time to do that on a daily basis, I operate better in terms of I have less stress. I make better decisions. I'm an overall happier person. And all I'm doing is really sitting there and letting my brain ruminate and get those thoughts out instead of going through my day, letting my subconscious just ruminate on that and giving me this like low level stress of this needs to be done. I need to figure out this solution. This is overdue, whatever that is. And so this is a conscious way of, I feel, doing that on a much higher level where you block off, one weekend a year, and that's where you do your yearly planning. And then every quarter, it's maybe one day out of that quarter and you do your quarterly planning and you kind of go through your life plan. You go through the projects that you're doing, and you just kind of allows you to check in with yourself. And kind of like what we talk about is, if we're like in a relationship or in a job, a lot of times we can't operate effectively because we never spend time away from it to work on the job or on the relationship. Right. And so this is intentional planning for that. And that's what I'm most excited about. I did it a little bit with my ex years ago, always got super excited about it, make like a little trip, we go away because he recommends getting out of the house and, make like a 3-day weekend somewhere. We do it at the beach, and we plan all day and then we, go out or go to the beach the next day. And so it became really enjoyable, and I'm excited for doing that again. And one of the epiphanies I had on my walk this morning, as we were talking about before the podcast, was that, as I'm looking for that really right woman that Glover talks about, making a list of the traits and characteristics you want in that ideal partner, I just realized, hey, I need to take that list that I have and see how I stand up to that, right? Where on those listed qualities, because honestly, I think we're going to attract the partner that we want, by being the partner that we want.
Right.
So, I was like, oh, this is a shortcut. This is great. So I don't need to kind of ruminate so much and figure out, hey, I want to start doing this. I want to start doing that. I already kind of summarized that in the partner that I'm looking for. So now I've got a great list to start from in terms of, okay, sense of humor, finances, health, things like that. How can I improve myself, or how can I become that same type of person that I want to attract? Right. So
yeah,
I was super excited by getting that shortcut this morning on my walk.
And the second bird that will be killed with that one stone is the fact that the places you go to improve on all those things is going to be the places that she'd be hanging out anyway.
Yes. Great point.
Be that
great point.
The gym, the church, the library, whatever place you have to go to develop yourself in that way, she's going to be there developing herself too. And then it's just a matter of figuring out how to meet her.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been on the dating apps since I became single again, and it's a lot. It's a waste of time, man. So much of it is. Yeah. I mean, and this is coming from somebody where I met all of my significant others on a dating app. Like, I don't meet them in person, but the problem is just lately, it doesn't get much past, the hey, how's the weather? Basic kind of conversation things. Every time I've tried to push past that and meet somebody in person, there's either been, disconnection or ghosting or silence or some sort of resistance. And I'm not interested in a virtual relationship. My primary love language is physical touch, followed by words of affirmation. So sometimes it gets tough to not fall into, especially if they're really good with conversation, to not fall into that. And I did in the past, where I'd have basically a relationship with somebody over text message, or on the phone. And because I respond very much to, words of affirmation and I'm much of an audiophile. But my primary is physical touch. So it ends up falling apart. if we never actually
text relationships don't do much to fill that need, do they?
No, not at all.
I wonder what the I mean, it's weird. You would think that the longer dating apps have been around and the more people that get on them, I don't know, I guess in some ways it makes it more challenging, in some ways it makes it less challenging, but part of it depends on what you're looking for. I mean,
what I haven't done is go ahead.
If your first message to every girl is, hey, here's my address, pick up a bottle of wine and head over, then I mean, if you're playing the numbers, then at some point that's going to work for you, because she's looking for the same thing you are. But I don't think your RGW, your really great woman, is probably, the woman you want to spend the rest of your life with is probably not the one that's taking you up on that offer when it's your first message.
Right. And let's just be clear, that is not the first message I ever send. So I just want to be clear.
No, of course not.
Yeah. But
me neither.
Yeah.
Because I don't drink.
Some of the
my first message is pick up a pint of Ben and Jerry's and head over.
Yeah. You have any keto, Chow? I'm out. I do, I see some of the dating apps that they're trying to put together, like meetups and stuff for people who are like members of, and I've not done any of those in-person events from any of the dating apps, and I'm a little reluctant to as well. I'm not sure how well those go, but I do see that they're trying to, get people to meet in person a little bit more.
Yeah, it's I mean, like with all technology, it's a rapidly evolving situation where the way that it was 2 years ago, there's no guarantee that it's going to be that way now or, a year from now. The the people who participate, how they participate, the people who figure out what works for them, what doesn't. I mean, I don't think, I mean, again, we talked about it on a previous episode. You can make it work for you in some ways, but it's still going to be a lot of effort to find what you're looking for.
Yep.
But so is going to the gym, so is going to coffee shops. I mean, it's gonna take effort.
Yeah. Yeah. And, same thing with this life planning is they recommend you review your life plan every day for the first 90 days. And then after that, every week.
Wow.
And it's true. What's on top of mind and what gets measured gets improved. And so, that's something that I didn't do the first time. And, I'm surprised I found this document from 2016, but I'm happy I've got a starting point. And even if you don't, the book is excellent. Again, it's Living Forward by Michael Hyatt. And he's got a lot of really great stuff in terms of, getting organized, but also keeping focused on what's important to you and how to figure that out, because that's being, growing up being a nice guy. That's been one of my challenges, is never figuring out what my needs are because of a couple of things. One, I really was kind of pushing them aside as much as possible with friends, but also I wasn't intentional about planning things. I wasn't intentional about sitting down and thinking about what I want. And then I just kind of got involved with, work and got busier and busier and busier. And before you knew it, I had no time for myself. So that's one of the keys, is you have to schedule that first. And you do that 1 or 2 years out. You plan each of these days where you just shut everything down. You tell everybody you're out of pocket. Don't bother me. I'm just going to focus on myself and how things have been going and what I want to do for the next quarter. And a lot of that also came from our new podcast coach, Adam Schäuble. He basically, he does a form of that, and he uses a little bit of Dan Sullivan's strategic coach planning. And that's one of the things that got me excited about working with him, because he does a 3-day a week work week. And in the last email at the end of it, we were talking about that the other day. That's one of the things he's focusing on now, is helping people get to a 3 to 4 day work week, other podcasters. So
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. Right. Yeah. So we definitely want to, re-engage with him a little bit more.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about, what you were just saying, and this is definitely something I fall into. I think you alluded to it as well. And I wonder how many other guys run into this. If you ask me at different portions of my life, say in the last 10 or 15 years, what are you passionate about? What are you interested in? For a pretty long span, I would probably give you the same answer, as far as, I like to hike. I like to travel. I like to, work on staying in shape. I like to read. I like to listen to audiobooks and podcasts. I like to visit new and exciting places and go on tours and eat the food there, and all those things. I would say about the same thing for the last 10 years, maybe longer. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But if you watched how much time and effort I actually dedicate to doing those things, you would see a graph that looks like a roller coaster based on whether or not I'm in a relationship. If I'm in a relationship, the amount of time that I spend doing those things. Now, I mean, some of those things I would do a lot of in the relationship if my partner was into it, and the ones that she wasn't into, I just wouldn't do. And when I'm single, I spend time doing all of those things as much as I want to do those things. And it is very easy to, as a nice guy in various levels of recovery from that, it's like, okay, well, there's 10 things that I really enjoy doing, but her and I match up on 4 of those things. So for the next X number of years that we're together, I'll just do those 4, and the other 6 I'll neglect. You know what I mean? And
I think that's very common. Yeah,
I think so too. And it's unfortunate, because, the thing that guys need to remember is she got attracted to and, decided to sleep with / fall in love with the guy who did 10 out of 10 things. And you've turned yourself into the guy who does 4 out of 10 things, and you expect her to be just as into you as she was when you first started. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but we do it anyway.
Right. Yeah. And I think, women do that too.
Oh yeah, I think it's a people thing, not just a man thing, but I only know it from one end,
Yeah. And I get it, especially if the relationship's going well, you want to spend as much time with that person as possible, usually. Yeah. And a lot of times it's, it's difficult to stay apart and do your own thing, especially when and you're excited about this relationship at first and stuff. But I think that's when it's, it's really important. So, and it adds variety and spice so that you guys can come back and talk about, doing something different if you're not spending every waking moment together.
Yeah. So, and that does lead us right into our chapter. We're starting part 3 of the book that never ends. We're going to start the section on building attraction, and let's talk about that. So, he uses the language of seduction, which for whatever reason that word seems a little creepy to me. I don't know why. It sounds like you're trying to get something out of somebody that they may not want to give you,
be aware of, or be aware of.
Yeah,
right?
Seduction
has it's kind of like sneaky a little bit, right?
Right, like you've got a goal that they don't know about, and you're trying to work into meeting this goal or meeting this need, and I don't know. Yeah, there's something about it. I don't know. Women may have a different take on it. They may like the word in the process of seduction, but for me, it just seems a little, I don't know, a little outdated, a little creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, building attraction, I think, is a better way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I would agree with that. So, one of the things he mentions, he breaks it into stages. Stage 1, first contact, arguably the best Star Trek movie. Just putting that out there. Stage 2, the chase. The thing that I picked up from the section on the paragraph on first contact, and this is kind of me reading between the lines, but I would say that what it's important for men to realize and recognize when you meet a new girl for the first time and you start establishing rapport with her, the first time you meet her, when you get a positive result, when it's going well, all that means is that she is probably, not certainly, but probably okay with the next step in the process. Doesn't mean that she wants to sleep with you. Doesn't mean she wants to date you exclusively. Doesn't mean she wants to marry you and have your kids. When you get good feedback from the very first step in the attraction process, all that means is she probably wants you to go to the next step. And what happens after
that's not sex? Isn't step 2 sex? No?
Not for me. I take a little bit more romance in.
Okay.
So if she's laughing at the first couple of jokes that you tell and, she's touching you on the arm, that might just mean that she wants you to ask for her number. And then depending on how you go about that, maybe it leads to a step 3, maybe it doesn't. But the thing to remember is, I think as guys, we tend to put a lot of carts before a lot of horses. And we tend to think, okay, she's really pretty and she's really making me feel good right now. So I should probably plan out a scenario where we spend the rest of our lives together.
Yeah. And so, when I was talking about step 2 being sex, I feel like a lot of us guys, we forget that there's a lot of other steps that come before that. In most cases, right? I mean, obviously there's some, some people out there some women out there that maybe it really is, but I think that's the mistake that we make is, and that comes, I think, from our hormones and also from being impatient a little bit as well. Right. And also our very active brains that spin stories, and delusions and fantasies about being with that woman in some capacity, whether that's a relationship or sex or whatever that is. So I think it's helpful to take a step back and look at, okay, yeah, exactly what you had said, which is it's just the next step. But I think it's important to kind of think about what all of those steps potentially could be. right? And it's not the same with every person. So I think it's important to go as slow as as you're comfortable with, but also not, but also be okay expressing some sort of interest and not just being completely indifferent either.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, I mean, one thing I think would probably be helpful for a lot of guys is just to come up with a process of this is what my dating progression looks like. Date number one is always on a weekday, and it's always just getting a cup of coffee or getting a drink. Date number one lasts for an hour, and then we go our separate ways, and we plan on date number two. And date number two is we have a drink and maybe a light snack, and then we go for a walk together. And that date will last for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And I mean, and I'm not saying these have to be rigid guidelines that you never break, but if you have no plan whatsoever, then you're just going to be at the whim of, your hormones and your level of desire and her level of availability. And it's just going to be an uncontrolled chaos based on what your emotions are telling you to do, where I think it's a better option to say, all right, look, this is what I do for first dates. This is what I do for second dates. This is what I do for third dates. And this is the plan I follow, unless I'm given, a compelling reason to change the plan. And that's where, the accountability and advice of a trusted friend come in too, where it's like, hey, date number one went so good, I think I'm going to invite her to the fanciest restaurant in town for date number two. And then, Dan steps in and says, hold on, Charles, that you had the plan for a reason, and now you're wanting to break the plan. Let's talk about this and determine if this is really the best idea.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to figure out what your intention is for each one of those dates. What is the ultimate purpose, in terms of getting to know her and getting to know that other person? What kinds of information do you want to find out about them? What's important to you in a partner, right?
Well, if you're like me and you, if you're like me and you, and you put, you like Dating Essentials for Men by Robert Glover, and you like his idea of the 5 and 5 list of saying, here, my ideal woman does these 5 things, and she absolutely does not do these 5 things, then the purpose of your early dating relationship with somebody is to talk to them and figure out whether, what are the things that disqualify them from being on that list.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a job interview. And think of it that way, right? Where when you're looking for a job, there's certain things that you're looking for in that job, that company. Maybe you want to meet, the people that you'd be reporting to, the people that you're working with. I think in an ideal situation, and you go about it with the proper intention, it's just gathering information. And I feel like that is a way that I like to do it. And I think it's a good approach is, kind of have that underlying motivation there or intent of just gathering information so you can make you can make the decisions that you want. Is she a good fit for you? Rather than just getting swept up in the way she looks and then just bypassing all that stuff. It's very difficult to do, even when you have this all thought out and written out and planned out. Our emotions and our feelings and the hormones all start flowing, especially if you're doing an exciting date and you're having a great time and you're vibing. A lot of that gets thrown to the wind, even if you've planned it in advance. Yeah. And so it's very difficult. And so, but if you haven't done any of that thought in advance, you don't stand a chance of being able to get that information. So at least this way you stand a chance, it might be a small chance, but at least you stand one.
I was going to say the same thing that, from what you learn from Tiny Habits and other places, like even a plan you don't stick to is better than no plan at all, because, at least you're working consciously, not unconsciously. And the job interview scenario should work both ways. Should we say mindfully? We're operating mindfully. We should say mindfully. You should assume that you're on a job interview with her too. It's not just you interviewing her. She's interviewing you as well. And
of course.
And, if you're early in your dating experience and if you're early in your professional career, you may make the mistake of thinking, okay, for this interview, I just need to say whatever I need to say so I can get hired. And then you find yourself in a job you don't belong in and it doesn't go well. And then the process of you either quitting that job or being fired from that job is absolutely miserable. And so as you get older, you tend to realize both professionally and, or smarter, and, some of those don't necessarily correlate. You tend to realize, okay, I don't want to talk myself into a situation I don't belong in, because then I'm going to be miserable and the people that I'm in the situation with are going to be miserable as well. So what I'm saying is, bring your authentic self to this two-way interview. One of the things I like doing on dates is I like having some deep conversations, stuff that I don't like holding first dates to small talk, because, if a girl was at the Capitol on January 6th, I want to find that out on the first date. I don't want to find it out, 6 months later after I'm already in love with her.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not saying I only date girls that were at the Capitol on January 6th. That's saying I prefer not to, just in case that wasn't clear.
Got it. Oh.
So,
it's interesting how well this job analogy works, because like you were just talking about too, is, if you're doing these 10 things on your own and you get into a relationship and all of a sudden you're only doing 4 of them, what would happen if you went to a job and they hired you because you know how to code, right? Right. You know how to do web design, how to, and all of a sudden you get on the job, you're like, I don't think I'm going to do that coding anymore. Well, we hired you as a coder. And now there's some tension, right? And so I think there's a lot of, or the same thing happens, right? You get hired and then they tell you, okay, well, we hired you to code, but we're going to need you to clean the toilets. Right. And it's just like, maybe, and it's like, well, all right. I mean, I'll do 1 or 2 of those things, but I that's not why I came to this job. Right. And, I think, I think there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah.
And you also spend just almost as much time, or probably sometimes even more time, at your job than you do with your spouse.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Right?
And you're right. It is important.
It's another important relationship.
Yeah. And yeah, you should not agree to do things in life that you don't want to do, to the level of, I mean, yes, everything's not perfect. You don't get to spend every day only doing things that are fun. But the older you get, the smarter you get, the more you realize, okay, these are the things that make me miserable. Like, somebody could come and offer me a job for $1 million a year, digging ditches and then filling them back in all day, every day. And I would say, no, keep your money. I'm not doing that. I don't want to be miserable all day for any price. And if there's stuff that you have to do to get or keep a job that you find miserable, or stuff that you have to do to get or keep a woman that you find miserable, then you're just not going to do it. You might tell yourself you're going to do it. You might tell her you're going to do it. You might tell your employer you're going to do it. But the way that you go about doing it is not going to make you or anybody else happy, if you even keep doing it at all. So what's going to happen eventually is you're going to either stop doing the thing, or you're going to keep doing the thing in a way that makes you resentful and an absolute monster to be around. And don't do that. It sucks. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's talk about the second part, but go ahead first.
Just real quick. I've been listening to another book also recommended by Adam Schreibel, which is, oh my God, hold on a second. I've totally,
I'm going to write it down. So
the name of this
you
book.
You have to find it.
It'll give me 1 second. It's The Road Less Stupid by Keith J. Cunningham.
I like that.
And you know who this guy is. So the author of the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that whole industry
Kiyosaki,
there.
Yeah. Robert Kiyosaki.
That's his Robert Kiyosaki. That's his rich dad.
Wow.
This guy. It's his rich dad. Yeah. And so he's the one who basically has like learned a lot, is incredible, successful businessman. And one of the things that really stuck with me, which was, basically what he said was, if you buy a pair of shoes that don't fit, it doesn't matter how inexpensive they are, right? It's basically, right. It doesn't matter how good of a deal something is if you can't use it. So he says the best ideas, if they can't be executed, are a waste. So it doesn't matter, or are worthless. And it's the same kind of concept, is if it doesn't fit, it doesn't matter how cheap it is, or if you're never going to use it, it's worthless. So I think that kind of is a similar type of analogy to being a nice guy, right? Which is pretending to get along or go along with things that don't really fit you and ignoring your own needs or not expressing them. It's worthless to you, and then you're going to get resentful. And it's the same thing if you're buying shoes that never fit you and you can't wear them, but you feel some sort of obligation to buy them. It's the same concept, right? You'd get resentful eventually of what you're doing here. So, just another way of thinking about it.
You want to hear something crazy? I have literally done that with shoes. I had a friend of mine who would, he introduced me to this idea. I think I've talked about my preferred, brand of shoe before. I really like Allen Edmonds. They make great men's shoes. We've got one store here in Orlando. There's one in Tampa, and, they have this service where you can have their shoes recrafted. So basically you own them for a while. You start, you start to wear down the soles from walking around in them, and you send them in, and they basically recondition the shoes and then send them back to you. And it used to cost $100. Now it costs a little bit more. But a friend of mine said what he was doing was he was going on eBay and he was buying the shoes used for like hardly anything, like $40 a pair. And then he would send them in and have them reconditioned. And then they came back and they were like a brand new pair of $400 shoes.
Brilliant.
Yes. So I found a pair on eBay. I found a pair on eBay that I really liked. It was a discontinued style. You couldn't buy it anymore, but it wasn't the right size. It was like one notch off on the width or something. It wasn't like, I take a 9 and I bought a 10. It wasn't anything that blatant, but it was like, I take a 9D and these were a 9 triple E or something like that. And I was like, they're cheap. I'll give it a shot and try it out. And I bought them. And they never fit quite right. So thankfully I didn't end up sending them in and paying the $100, but I did try to wear them around a little bit. I was like, my feet will get used to them. They'll get used to my feet, but they never did. And so I had to give up on the plan. And sorry, I got a fly in here. I had to give up on the plan after getting some blisters on my feet for a couple weeks. And it's exactly right. Yeah. The wrong size shoe is never going to fit you.
Yep. Right. Yep.
So don't do what I did. Be smarter than me. Okay, let's talk about the chase. This is part 2 in the building attraction with a woman. Is the part where you've received some evidence and you've given out some evidence that you like her and she likes you, and now it's pretty much it's in the process or the stage where she's kind of looking to see if you do something that reveals that you're not as strong and confident as you first appeared to be, so that she has an opportunity to get out before, she makes a mistake. And that's a negative way to spin it, but I think it's accurate. I think, in the next step where it's your job to start setting dates and showing up for dates and going on dates with her and texting her or calling her, that is the time where, as a man, you are most likely to screw things up and kill the attraction that you've built so far. And how do we do that? We typically do that by overinvesting.
Mm-hmm.
We do that by being too communicative, by being too needy, by being too anxious. And the thing to remember is, what I'm not telling you to do is don't have all these feelings where you want to constantly talk to her and chase her and be in her face all the time and then not do it. What I'm telling you is you need to figure out why you have those feelings this early in a relationship, and you need to deal with the underlying issue that makes you feel that way before you ought to feel that way.
Right. Yeah. You need to evaluate your brain and go, okay, wait a minute. You know, am I making a lot of assumptions here? Am I really looking at what reality is, or am I making things up? And, you know, to talk about her, you know, looking at you, she's gathering information too. Like we said, that's her process, is gathering information, seeing how you react when you first start communicating with each other. And that is, it is just her way of gathering information and making sure that she's got the information that she needs to allow herself to get close to you and to feel like she can trust you and be comfortable with you. I think that's why there's a lot of what they call like quote unquote testing, and call it whatever you want, but it's information gathering, and exactly. They don't know you. And it's weird if you are moving, you know, based, you know, or acting as if you are like best friends with them already, or know them like, you know, for years, when, you know, you hardly know anything about them. And so for you to behave as if, you know, you are already in some sort of, you know, relationship or know them that well, and at the same time, that's not what reality is, that's a warning sign. That's okay, you're not on the same page as I am. You're not seeing what I see in reality. And now I'm concerned. So what's going on with you that's making you, you know, behave this way, which isn't consistent with what I see as reality.
And here's another point that just occurred to me as well, which is, when two people are attracted to each other and they're getting to know each other and they're starting the very early process of building a relationship, women, in my experience, they want to do some chasing too. They want to chase the man that they're interested in. And if you are the one who's constantly initiating communication with her, constantly, you know, making yourself available, you know, oh, I'm free anytime, just let me know, then you're taking that part of the experience away from her. You're not letting her enjoy chasing you a little bit. And there's some fun chemicals that men and women both get to enjoy at the beginning of a relationship, where you're chasing each other. And if you're overly available and constantly available to her, and you're constantly pursuing her and never backing off at all, then you're robbing her of that experience, and she doesn't get to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there needs to be a little bit of tension there, at least, so that she's got something that, and that's, we're human beings, and we enjoy that tension, that unknowing, right? A little bit of that pursuit, suspense, right? Not knowing, what's going on. You know, TV shows have mastered that, you know, in terms of being able to continue to make people want to watch the next episode. They'll add that little bit of tension and, you know, leave those open-ended type of scenes at the end where you're wondering what's going to happen, and it's going to make you want to tune in. But if you can go right to the next episode, that feeling of that little bit of anxiety, that feeling gets immediately relieved. And then at that point, you're kind of back to baseline. And I think if that happens too many times, it gets stale, I think.
Yeah. And so here's one of the mistakes that men make in this stage. They have this attitude of, well, if she doesn't know exactly how into her I am, then I might lose her to some guy who is telling her exactly how into her he is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, it doesn't usually go that way. It goes the other way. Mm-hmm. If you're gonna lose her to another guy, it's going to be a guy who she's a little more uncertain about what he's thinking, not a guy who, you know, is coming out and telling her more about where he's at. So, you know, that's the mysterious guy is the guy you have to worry about, not the guy who's constantly chasing her and telling her how, I know we're just friends, but I wish we were more than that. It's like, you don't have to worry about that guy. You have to worry about the guy that she doesn't that she's got some attraction for and has no idea how he feels about her.
Right. I mean, and the other thing
be
too
that
is,
guy.
Right. Yeah. So, right. Be that guy, but also know that you don't know, who's talking to her, and don't start letting your brain make all these assumptions. You're never going to figure it out. It's never going to be accurate. All you're doing is wasting your time. So don't worry about it. Focus on yourself and focus on getting right and being mindful and being masculine for yourself.
Yeah. And focus on, I mean, you shouldn't have your mind completely made up about her at this point. You shouldn't be planning out this. I mean, you shouldn't pretend to be aloof and mysterious. You should be mysterious. You should not know where things are going to go either. And you should act that way.
Yeah. Because it shows that you value yourself and that you've got, you don't just let anybody get close to you and earn your trust. You need to get some information that takes some time. It takes some shared experiences, and so take your time. And I think what Glover said, before you commit to somebody, or was it before you get married, you should be dating somebody for 2 years. Was it commitment or marriage?
I think it was marriage. I mean, it was, like it takes a long time to figure out what somebody's really about in good times and in bad times when, be around somebody when they lose a job, when they get sick, stuff like that, and see what it's like, because, until you see some of that, you don't know who somebody really is until you see them under some pressure.
Yeah. The only way you're going to see that is through time, because those experiences don't happen every day. And so it's going to take some time.
If they do that as one rough day.
So yeah, logically, it's going to take time to really see that, all of those sides of a person and how they operate.
Yeah. And then when you do see it, trust that you're seeing something important. It doesn't mean, oh, I don't like the way she acts when she catches a cold, so I'm going to break up with her. But, just look at it in the perspective of, if you're a guy who's looking for a very long-term relationship or to start a family, it's like, okay, I'm probably going to watch her go through a lot of colds, a lot of flus, a lot of global pandemics. Well, hopefully not a lot. I think that's redundant. I think all pandemics are global, but anyway,
pan, I think, right, is the whole key.
But just realize that, okay, if I don't like the way somebody handles pressure and adversity, and you're still planning on building a life with them, you're going to see a lot of pressure and adversity. And so if somebody flies off the handle and gets angry at you and, just behaves in a way that you find unacceptable, it's okay as a one-off. But, again, if you're looking to build a life with somebody, what seems like a one-off probably isn't going to be a one-off.
Right. And it's a great opportunity for you to kind of write down some of these different scenarios that will show what kind of person somebody is, and then evaluate yourself against that list and say, that's a great point. Fly off? Am I a complete baby, a helpless baby, whiny baby when I get sick? Or do I, right. But is that okay? Like, maybe you're okay with that, but then you can't expect that other person to be any different than the way you are. I really feel like that's where you're going to have right. You're going to have some problems brewing for you if there's a big difference in a lot of those trying times. So, but also the good times, how do you handle yourself, in good times? What do they, how do they operate, at, family reunions and birthday parties and hanging out with friends and stuff? Do they get, are they happy drunk, or do they get, completely shit faced and you have to carry them back to the car? Like, what does that look like? And have you, do you have to get carried back to the car, or do they have to call the cops on you? Or, and if so, then I think you're setting yourself up for disaster if you're expecting something different from the other person. I agree. And don't look to date somebody who's better than you, who's going to lift you up out of your shitty life. I mean, that's what coaches and doctors are for, and psychiatrists and stuff, right? Exactly. You got to pay those people, right? You want to make their life, the other person's life, better. Not what was the line from? Was it Nicholson's line that you gave me yesterday.
Oh yeah, you make me want to be a better man.
Yeah,
you make me want to be a worse man.
Yeah. You don't want to be with somebody like that.
Yeah, no, definitely not. You reminded me of something, and I want to revisit the book, the bullet journal book by Ryder Carroll.
Okay.
And I want to get more into bullet journaling again, which the good news is I get to go buy a new bullet journal because I enjoy the process of shopping for them more than I enjoy the process of writing in them. But one of the things he said was he was talking about how he bullet journaled after a date with a girl and, just made a couple of very brief notes about how the date went. And then a few weeks later, she breaks up with him, doesn't want to see him anymore. And he feels bad because you feel bad when you're broken up with. But then he goes back to his bullet journal and he looks up and he remembers the time that he took her out to dinner. She ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, didn't eat it, and then didn't thank him for dinner. And he's like, you know what? I felt a lot better about that breakup after I went back and remembered how I felt when she treated me that way. And it's like, you know what? This breakup's not quite so sore as it was a minute ago because now I went back and remembered, okay, instead of romanticizing and pretending like everything was perfect, here it is right in my bullet journal when she did this and it bothered me.
Yeah. Yep. I think and I think the first time I heard about that kind of concept was How I Met Your Mother. I don't know if you watched any of those. No. That was I really enjoyed that series. But one of the things I think they talked about, one of the characters wrote, I think a letter to himself, when he broke up with somebody and he was thinking about getting back together with them. And he said, one of his buddies was like, look, have you reread the letter that you wrote to yourself about what happened, the breakup, months ago. And, it's something that I haven't been great about, but I started to do that. And it's absolutely helpful because our brains will, basically sugarcoat our bad memories to kind of protect ourselves. Right. And, we won't remember all of the negative things. And, especially if we're going through some trying times and we're feeling uncomfortable or we're upset about something and the other person is still around, even though they weren't a good fit. A lot of times we'll end up getting back with our ex because we remember more of the good stuff than the bad stuff. And we just want relief from the current uncomfortableness that we're experiencing. And we end up cycling through those types of people and behaviors because we want that relief, and it never works because, we forget about the bad stuff. So having that objective letter to your future self, just like, trying to be your future butler by, making your bed and putting the dishes away, be a therapist to your future self, write a letter. And so that you can look back on it if you're about to make another decision to get back with that same person. So
yes. And I agree. That's a good idea. And I like the letter idea, but I think even better than that is, if you truly integrate some sort of a journaling process into your life, it's almost like, it's kind of like taking a dollar cost averaging approach to your life where, which just for anybody who's not familiar with that term, basically it says you invest money into stocks or mutual funds for the future, for your retirement, a way where you buy, whether the market's up, the market's down, you just put a little bit of money away all the time anyway. And over the long term, it works for you. Journal every day. When you have a good day, when you have a bad day, every kind of day that you have, journal and make a note of the experiences you had, the interactions you had with other people. And if you get into the practice of doing that every day, then when a job ends, when a relationship ends, when a health challenge comes up, it's very easy to, look back and say, okay, I want to remember what it felt like when life wasn't this way, when life was a different way. And it really can put you in touch with those feelings and with those states that you were experiencing. So, that's why, I've got my 5-year journal that I got from Rustico. You use the 5-minute journal, and there's a ton of great journals out there that make the crack this open and do a little bit of writing every day that make that easy. And I tried the 5-minute journaling app on my iPad. I don't like it as well as I like putting actual pen to paper.
Yeah, me too. There's something therapeutic about putting pen to paper.
I think I'm going to buy a 5-minute journal. I've never actually had one, but I think I'm going to buy one. And
they're great because now, because there's a quote of the day at the top of every page, but they're changing them out. So you buy one now and then you buy another one later, you're getting new quotes. It's not the same.
I like that.
It's not, it's great. The one thing that I fall victim of is not reviewing what I've written when I do this journaling. And so that's one of the intentions that I have about doing this, putting in place this life planning and this life review process is, one of the tasks I'm going to do on like a quarterly basis is reviewing my 5-minute journal entries.
That's a
good idea. Sit there and kind of go through them, because if I don't schedule that time, I never do it. And my memory is not remember all that stuff that I wrote down, but it's always a great experience because it brings you right back to that day. And there's so many things I forgot about that. That's right. Fantastic. It's kind of looking at it like an old photo album almost.
Yeah. It is so important to, and really, just from a practical standpoint, if there's any area of your life that you're dissatisfied in, trying to just make changes in the present to have a better future without looking at your past is, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's not going to happen. If you don't have some kind of a handle on the story of your past, whether that's relationships or career choices that you made, if you don't have a coherent story about here's who I was and here's who I am now, then your ability to make a change in the future is going to be extremely limited.
Yeah.
And spending that time looking back at the past and remembering how you felt and what it felt like to go through X, Y, or Z, it's very important. And I think that is definitely something worthy to put on your calendar to say, okay, I'm periodically going to make a deliberate choice to go back in the time machine and remember what it felt like when I went through life. And that's, I like that about my 5-year journal where I can see, I'm starting to get some entries now from 2021, I think. So, when I crack it open and do today's entry for June 30th, 2023, I haven't been, as meticulous about making sure I do this every day for the last 3 years, but I did buy the thing 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so there's always a chance when I crack it up to do today's entry, I might see how I was feeling a year ago and how I was feeling 2 years ago.
Oh,
and
nice.
It's always interesting to see, where I was and what my favorite thing of that day or that stuff. Yeah. So
I might get one. I'll
include a link to the one that I own in the show notes, and we will make that available. They're a great company. They make really nice leather goods, Rustico, however you pronounce it. And I really like this product that they have. And they don't pay me money to say that, though they should. Okay. Last thing I want to say for this episode is, during the chasing stage where you're trying to go from meeting someone you like that you have some chemistry with to possibly making her your girlfriend, guys will prematurely roll out some phrases like, I've never felt this way about a girl before, or I think I might be falling in love with you, or the worse, when are you free? Anytime's good for me.
Yeah. Right. You're not.
Guys, yeah. Those seem like romantic ideas. Those seem like things you very much want to say because you're feeling them and you think that they will be received well and they will help you get your needs met by saying them. And the truth of the matter is they usually will not. When it's appropriate to say you're in love with somebody, by all means say it. But this, I think I might be falling in love with you nonsense. Don't ever say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't think of a good reason to say that.
Yeah. You're devaluing yourself. And basically what you're doing then is you are no longer, you've removed the value of yourself for her. And so now, she's got a lot less interest because you're basically saying, "Hey, yeah, it's like it's like going car shopping, and you're looking at a Lamborghini, and all of a sudden, the car salesman, once he sees that you were looking at it, goes, hey, this is free, by the way, you can please take the Lamborghini, it's free." You'd be a little skeptical. You'd be like, "Hey, wait a minute, free, really? Like, doesn't cost anything?" I'd be like, what's wrong with it? That'd be my first question. It's like, why are you trying to get rid of it so quickly? Why are you so quick to just push it onto me?
I think it's a terrible idea for completely separate reasons. So tell me what you think about this.
Yeah.
The phrase, "I think I might be falling in love with you," is a way to hedge your bets and say I'm in love with you without having to express the vulnerability of actually saying I'm in love with you.
Yeah.
It's a way that you can say, "I think I might be falling in love with you." That is something that is said from a position of weakness, in my opinion,
and indecision.
Indecision. Like, I'm going to say this, but if I don't get the reaction that I want from you, then I can just go back and say, "Well, I guess I was wrong. Never mind. Let's pretend like I didn't say it."
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you mean you're not sure? Like what?
If somebody said, "I think I might be falling in love with you," my reaction would be like, "You think?"
Right.
Well, when you figure it out, let me know.
Right. Like, what am I supposed to do with that information other than you obviously trying to use it to manipulate me to do something that you want? Because there's no other value in that for me.
You're right. You might want me to say, "Well, I'm definitely in love with you," and then you can say, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm in love with you too. I just didn't want to say that."
Right.
No, don't ever hedge your bets and say stuff to people in general or women specifically where it's like, "I think I might be." It's like, if you don't know exactly what you feel, keep your mouth shut. If you do know exactly what you feel, maybe keep your mouth shut anyway. But under no circumstance, just come out with some sort of a, "Hey, I think I like you. I might like you. Do you like me? Check yes or no."
Right.
Which is essentially what that phrase is doing.
Right. It's very passive aggressive, or not aggressive, but it's a very passive way of, you're not.
You're trying to take somebody's temperature without committing to. I mean, it's the same way that, guys will sometimes sort of kind of ask a girl out or sort of kind of say that they're interested. It's like, no, if you want something worth having, then you got to put some skin in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And again, if you know that you're already in love with her, either say you're in love with her or keep your mouth shut until a time where it makes more sense to tell her that you're in love with her. But I would say, tread lightly when it comes to making declarations like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're talking about stage 2 here a little bit.
Exactly. Yes.
So there's no way you should be in love with her.
Right. Yeah. If you think you might be in love with her, it's time for, in stage 2, then it's time for you to do some deep personal work and share this situation with a friend, a support group, a therapist, and say, "Hey, I've only known this girl for 4 weeks and I'm having these feelings that feel like I'm in love with her. What should I do about that?" And then hopefully you've got a friend like Dan who will say, "You're not in love with her yet."
For yourself, all you got to do, just write down, why are you in love with her? What is it about her that you love so much? And I if you can get past, a paragraph, I'd be surprised. At 4 weeks. You don't know anything.
And then do another paragraph about potential red flags. And if there's nothing, that's when okay, you're in limerence. You're experiencing some. Your hormones have taken over the central processing unit, and you need to talk to your friends that are able to snap you out of it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have friends like that, you really need to find some. Friends, therapists, support group, whatever it is, you need people in your life that will be willing to say, "Okay, I know where you're at right now. I've been there before. This is not the time to make any huge decisions."
Yeah.
Because, man, I mean, the beginning of a relationship, you and I were talking about this yesterday. It's like you're on drugs. I mean, it really is. It is like, and it's a drug that you can't buy on the street. It is something that the wash that your brain is experiencing when you're in that early stage with somebody, it has you doing and feeling some wild stuff. And that is not the time to if you let it go out of control, you will make mistakes that will sabotage that relationship as well as your future.
Yeah. Try to avoid making big decisions and declarations when you're tired, when you're high, when you're drunk. All those times are not the time your brain is not operating effectively, and try to not make any kind of decisions or declarations in those states.
Sorry, I got a message that popped in. Yeah, I totally agree. You don't make decisions that are important when you're drunk, when you're high, or when you're at the beginning of a relationship that will have consequences for years or a lifetime.
Yeah, and I am speaking from experience, so
as am I. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's stop there. Our next episode, we will talk about a few case studies on why you should not try to artificially rush this process, why you should not invest too heavily too soon. And let me see what the next one is, because there's quite a few short ones coming up, which I like. That'll probably be the two that we do. Mm-hmm. Don't try to rush and don't try to overinvest. All right, cool. Dan, let's leave it there for now, and I will see you later today when we get together and do some work on our studio.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, chat with you later.
All right, have a good one. Bye.
Bye.